you check the children? Show a little mad sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes. That is what
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And again, Jaime and Fuego here.
And we are here to give our thoughts on the brand new James Wan release that is available both in the theater as well as at home on HBO Max. At least for now, right? This is another temporary 30-day window, and then it'll go away and come back in a couple months.
Yep, exact same thing they did with Wonder Woman 84 and various other titles over the past year. Reminiscence being a terrible movie that did a dual release recently as well. So.
I started that, and it was so boring, I couldn't even finish it. Like, I don't have time for that anymore. But yeah, this is what we are going to be doing today, which is our usual review format. We're going to talk about our overall thoughts, then we'll talk about the story, the acting, the effects, the cinematography and filmmaking for sure, and all of that good stuff in turn. So, Fuego, I'm curious, because it seems like there's some people that are happy with the movie, and then there's some people that aren't sure about the movie. I'm curious where you fall, so why don't you give your overall thoughts first?
Yeah, I'm very happy to. So, being James Wan, you gotta believe this is gonna be a breathtaking looking film. It oozes atmosphere. It's very lovely to look at. But unfortunately, I feel like the script to this movie is really weak, and I felt like the acting a lot of the time was very hammy and over the top. And, you know, I always clamor about the burden of expectation on this channel, and I think I really went in just expecting something that was gonna just blow me away, and the fact that this was just kind of mediocre and honestly silly at times in my estimation too. And the third act goes bonkers, man. And so I guess that for just the sheer silliness of it maybe was a little redeeming. I've seen a lot of people making the 90s Giallo sort of comparison, and I guess from a storytelling standpoint maybe, and you know, just from the way it looked, but I wanted to really like this movie, and at the end of the day I didn't. So yeah.
So yes, I was actually of a similar mindset to you on this one. I went in with heavy expectations and high hopes because James Wan is my current favorite horror director working, and I was just looking forward to him doing something, because they even had him in the promotional materials saying, you know, I wanted to do something different and you really got to go for it and make bold choices and things like that. And I was like, okay, interesting. It's like getting me very, you know, excited about the movie. Bold choices, interesting ideas, and I totally agree with you in that the movie was beautiful and really visually interesting to watch. There were a few shortcomings. I didn't have as big a problem with the acting as you seem to have, but I agree that it got pretty silly, especially at one point. Early on, they did something with a character's movement, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting choice, and it is creepy and unnerving, but then it goes wild in the third act, and it just came off silly to me, ultimately. Like, I didn't know exactly how I felt about it immediately afterwards, and I wanted to sleep on it, and yeah, I think I ultimately landed on the fact that it just came off silly, especially when you coupled that particular scene with the weakest effect of the movie. And, you know, we can't really say what it is, but it's something that gives away what's going on every single time you show it. And it's like, I didn't like that effect. It pulled me immediately out of it. But I will say that everything else I enjoyed well enough. So, I don't know. Let's get into the story of it, Fuego. Why don't you go ahead and give the rundown of the story for everyone?
Yeah, so story essentially, I must say that I feel like a bit of the promotional material actually gave away a reveal sort of thing in its premise that you don't really find out the full extent of until later on in the movie. The fact that they say it's about an imaginary friend, and they've kind of mentioned that in lots of the different stuff, but really there's this woman, and she has been just plagued and troubled since she was a very young kid. Her mother died, and she is under foster care and everything as she's growing up. She has this adoptive sister, I guess, that she's very close with as well, and yet she also is in a abusive relationship, as we see right at the very beginning of the film. And something happens to said guy. We're not going to go into specifics and stuff, but so relationship ends, and then it really just becomes an examination of her psyche without me really trying to spoil anything, and trying to figure out the full nature of whether, she has an imaginary friend, the extent of her sanity, how like there she really is. And there's a couple dopey cops in there that they felt so formulaic to me and tropey, and so they're on the case trying to help her at first, but then maybe figure out as a series of murders start to transpire how and why she's connected, because there is a deep connection there. And so that's where I'm kind of trying to dance around without spoiling stuff. And then the third act gives you all of the revelations you want and then some. And just the whole tone of the film, I feel like shifted drastically from eerie to deliberately over the top. I guess that's what Juan was talking about when he said going for it. He goes for it, that's for damn sure. And there's a scene there's a scene of conflict, well, two in particular actually, that happen at a police station that are just pretty ridiculous without really getting too into it. So I don't know, I thought the story was just kind of by the numbers, how crazy is this person sort of thing, and who's responsible for these murders, and that's about it. It didn't bring a lot of freshness to the table that I was hoping for.
So on a macro level, I agree with you. But on a micro level, I feel like it's not something we see often. It is something we've seen before. And one of your favorite full moon features has a very similar sort of thing going on. You know what I mean? And it's kind of strange in the fact that this is the choice that Juan made, but it is a bold choice. You have to give him that. It is a bold choice, and it's going to either land for you or it's not. And it did not for us, clearly. Yeah. But everything around it was interesting, and the effects outside of that one particular scene, which is one of the conflict scenes that Fuego is talking about, really the effects were cool and interesting, because it's not something that you see very often, if at all. So it's at least got that going for it. But yes, story-wise, again, like he said, it's nothing new, but it's not something you see often necessarily. So I respected how it played out, but it just kind of wasn't for me. There was kind of a twist to the third act, and it just didn't it didn't really land for me. So story-wise, little weak, but let's get into the acting more specifically. So I didn't have the issue, except for the fact that one character is forced to kind of do a thing in the back half of the movie on a fairly regular basis, where they're forced to kind of not do anything but look weird or whatever. And at that point, they're not allowed to do very much else for the rest of the movie. So it's kind of strange in that way. But outside of that, I thought everyone acted fine. You thought the cops were derpy? Were they just
very
super formulaic, or like not like doofus derpy or anything like that?
No. I mean, we're not talking like the South Park cops or anything like that. But I don't know. I mean, the lead male cop, he was all right. I thought the woman was a little bit better. But our lead, I felt like in some of these scenes where she gets like really hysterical, especially later in the film, I just thought she was overdoing it, almost like hiding back a smile while she's just getting so crazy into it. I thought her sister was good, and then there's a couple minor characters that we meet very briefly, some of the doctors who had like worked with her as she was getting through certain stuff, but it just felt hammy at times, and not consistently throughout the entire movie. But as the stakes were raised, and also as some of those reveals that we mentioned became apparent, that's where I felt like it was over the top, and it just didn't work as well for me.
Now, we gotta say that we are coming off of a recent viewing of a not too dissimilar premise in The Night House.
And that's what I couldn't help but compare it to, unfortunately.
Yeah, especially acting-wise. And Rebecca Hall killed it in The Night House. And I'm not sure. Do you know this actress's name off the top of your head? Because I don't.
Yeah, I don't. There's no big names in this cast, really. That's one thing definitely to mention. And I think maybe that's why I was a little bit more critical of the acting, because it didn't feel as esteemed and polished as...
But I don't feel like she had quite as much to chew on. Again, she's kind of left not doing a lot at certain times throughout the movie, and that's not doing her any favors. But let's get into the filmmaking, right? Because that's a positive that we both liked. James Wan had a clear vision for what he wanted with this. And what's interesting is some of it is converse to what he's done in the past in the majority. So he's very good at establishing atmosphere and mood with slow camera movements and, you know, just showing you around the house and different things that may or may not come into play later and stuff like that. And you get that for about the first half of the movie. And then when you start to see the other stuff, and especially in the third act, then it's much more action heavy and a lot more crazy camera stuff than we're used to from Wan. So I don't know. It was still really beautiful, but it was an interesting switch up that kind of happens at one point in the movie. It's not to say that one part is better than the other, but one part is the one you expect, and the other, it's more Fast and Furious James Wan.
Exactly. Fast and Furious, Aquaman, that's totally the vibe I got from the third act. But yet, for a majority of the rest of the film, I mean, some of his exterior shot selections of like just the ominous looking house that he keeps going back to in the film, and some of the lighting too. I mean, some of the alleyways with like some of the reds and, you know, blacks and stuff that he used, it did ooze atmosphere, and I really appreciated just from a filmmaking standpoint. And also those psychedelic like transformation-y bits that we get a taste of in the trailer. We get a few of those throughout the movie, and I thought those were very well shot and looked really dope. And so it's a breathtaking looking movie. That's definitely the one positive I will double down on. So.
I specifically was a fan of them utilizing the entire house set that they clearly built via a ceiling shot that follows. It tracks her from room to room and floor to floor, still on, you know, from the ceiling. And it's a really cool shot. And it's just like, there's James doing his thing again, you know, really wowing with the visual presentation. So that's still nice, at least, we gotta say.
Damn right. The shot selection was pretty flawless throughout, I gotta say. Even when it gets more action centric, and you know, I could still tell that he has that sort of just kind of eye for making stuff feel very frenetic and urgent and stuff. Now, the story that was associated with those scenes, that's where I had my gripes, but you know, it still all looked really dope.
As far as the sound design goes, I thought they did a great job there as well. I didn't notice it quite as much as I have in past Wan movies as really outstanding, I gotta be honest, but it was still well enough. I didn't, you know, nothing took me out of it or anything like that, but I gotta say the score didn't really stick with me very much.
I dug some of the synthy stuff that
they did. Waxwork just released a pre-order for it, and I was like, I honestly can't remember a single bit of music from the one watching I did, so.
Yeah, this is one that I think maybe I would have enjoyed the audio experience a little bit more if I had gone to the theater and sat in the Dolby.
Yeah.
Having seen Shang-Chi the other day in the Dolby and just feeling the rumble in the seat and everything. Yeah, this is one that I think could be enhanced with a theatrical experience, but I was happy to be able to see it earlier. Very, very strange that they didn't do any Thursday preliminary screenings, which pretty much every big box office release gets those. For whatever reason, they chose not to do that with this one. So I don't know if that's because of the HBO Max deal or whatever. You know, we can speculate all we want, I suppose. But yeah, this is definitely one that from a sonic standpoint, I thought it also stood out. So
Now, finally, let's talk about the gore and the effects. Again, there wasn't a ton of gore, but they didn't shy away from it by any stretch, especially when you get to the third act. And there's, you know, a lot more gore to be had at that point. And so, yeah, he lets it fly when it's necessary, but he doesn't really revel in it like a lot of directors do. He's not afraid of a geyser of blood if necessary from a wound, but it's not something, he doesn't hold on it for very long or anything like that. So
yeah.
The gore is there, and specifically with one particular effect that's cool when it's in action and sort of in transition without spoiling what it actually is. It's a cool effect, but it renders the necessity of that one effect, renders this particular action scene we've referred to really silly because of what they have to do on the other side of said effect, so to speak. You know what I mean? Without spoiling it.
Yeah, it's not a gratuitous film per se. I don't know. I enjoyed it, but yeah, with regards to the plot and everything. But once again, not reveling in gratuitousness. And James Wan has never really been that kind of guy. Even Saw, for instance, Saw and Dead Silence, some of his earlier stuff, Saw got gorier as it went along in comparison with that first film and how it was a lot of insinuation as opposed to actually just being gross and reveling in it. So I mean, Wan stays to his formula in that particular regard. So it's nothing insanely over the top from like a gore standpoint.
Yeah. But all in all, I'm glad I watched it. It's a positive
yeah.
experience. It's not in the tops for me. I would say that I liked both Conjuring movies that he did and probably both Insidious movies that he did better than this. I might even say I liked Dead Silence better than this as well.
I definitely did too.
So it's a shame, but it's not such a dramatic slip as like Shyamalan has had in the past. You know what I mean? It's not a bad movie. It's just they made a story choice that just didn't land with me, and it either does or it doesn't with the viewer. I think that's what we're going to find out as reviews start to pour in.
Yeah, and there's not that many, at least up as of this viewing, because I don't think there were press screenings for this movie, and I don't know, maybe the studio had a little less faith than they were anticipating in it. I don't know. It is going to be the first R-rated horror movie released in China, which is interesting. So that's
really?
That's on the horizon. Yep. So going for that money there at least. So and with some of the things in that third act, I guess I can see why there might be some appeal, a couple sequences in particular. But oh man, I can't spoil since we're not doing that here. But there was one bit in the jail, man, where you've got like the 70s like Pam Grier type chick, and then you've got like the really butch. It was just such a silly segment that I just couldn't take the movie that seriously from there onward. So anyway,
yeah, I get you. It definitely got silly in my opinion too. So I don't know. Maybe the people that are watching will have a different reaction. Guys, let us know in the comments down below. As you watch this, come on back and let us know what your thoughts are, because the movie is only now available as of the last 13 hours on HBO Max, as we're recording this anyway. So go and check it out. Come back. Let us know what you thought. Try not to spoil stuff for people that haven't actually watched it yet, but please do let us know what your thoughts are, because I'm curious if people are going to like this, or if they're not going to like it, or if they're going to fall somewhere in between like us, if they like that story choice or not. There's a lot to discuss on this one. So come on back, let us know what your thoughts are, and we will try and get Marsha's opinion. We wanted to have Marsha join us for this, but she wasn't able to watch it in time for the review because we wanted a female's perspective on this. So she's going to watch it, and then we're going to do our live review roundup this coming Sunday, the 12th. And we'll start off that episode with Marsha giving her brief thoughts on the movie. So we'll still get that perspective. It's just going to be 2 days from now instead of today. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the channel the way that you do. We greatly appreciate you guys. The link to that is in the description box down below. While you're down there, if you haven't yet, click that subscribe button. Make sure you come back and watch future videos. The subscribe button is not utilized nearly enough, so we greatly appreciate those that use it. So thank you very much. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
And gracias a Jaime and Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.